Hi, thank you for coming to today's event. My name is Susan Lee. I am the governor from Long Island, New York ACP, and this is our 5th Women in Medicine webinar as part of our Early Careers Task Force programming. And also with me by telephone is Ankita Sagar. She's the co-chair of the Early Career Task Force. And she today is moving out of her apartment in Brooklyn. So talk about women who truly multitask, but we appreciate everyone coming. I know this is a hard time. It's dinner time, family time, but I think that today is, we have really 2 important themes that tie together very nicely. And we're very, very lucky to have 2 outstanding individuals tonight. The first topic will be about building your brand intentionally every day, given by Dr. Dawn Sears. And the second topic will be about social media and CV building. So we're going to go back to back. Each speaker will be about 20 minutes, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for question and answer and discussion. So Dr. Dawn Sears is with us virtually from the great state of Texas, where she is a clinical associate professor at Texas A&M University. She's a fellow in the American College of Gastroenterology. She's a sought-after speaker, and she's the founder of GutGirlMD, and she also tweets by that name as well. And this company that she founded, she serves as the executive coach, offering women physician empowerment conferences to health systems and individuals. And she's on a mission to halt the hemorrhage of women leaving medicine, which truly is a crisis. And she was one of 18 women physician leaders who were selected to participate in the Women's Wellness Equity and Leadership Program. This is a program that ACP helped to support. And this program helped to provide networking, education, leadership skills to help disseminate policies that create equitable and healthy infrastructure and work environments for women physicians. Additionally, she's a prolific writer, and you can read her inspirational pieces on online forums such as GutGirlMD. I truly was inspired by your writing. And so it's really a pleasure to have you today. Our second speaker will be Dr. Avital. She is coming to us from the great state of Oregon, and she's going to be speaking to us about social media and CV building. She is a fellow of ACP, and she's a hospitalist and associate professor of medicine in the Division of Hospital Medicine, and also Department of Anesthesia and Perioperative Medicine at Oregon Health and Science University. OHSU, is that right, Avi, I think? Additionally, she's assistant program director for social media and scholarship at OHSU. She has an active following on Twitter, and she's one of our top Twitter internists, truly. She has 12,000 followers, and she has a passion for promoting the overlap between traditional academic medicine and non-traditional work, such as digital scholarship for CVs and career building. She's also the honorary chief of perioperative medicine for the ACP Internal Medicine podcast, The Curbsiders. If you have not listened to their podcast, you should. They're really enjoyable and super fun. And yesterday I saw on Twitter that her children were proudly and bravely vaccinated for COVID-19. So
that's right, late last night.
Big round of applause. So we'll start with Dr. Sears, and she has her slides up. And I think you guys will really like this conference today.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Lee. And thank you, Dr. Lee and Dr. Sager, for including me to be part of ACP New York chapter for this amazing work with early women careers and for this task force. So thank you for this powerful platform to talk to so many people across the nation at this time. So I love it. So I'm going to be talking about building your brand intentionally and daily. So what is building your brand? Well, if you look it up, it talks about using whatever is available to you to advertise or to generate awareness of your services. And so we do that all day long. And the words that we use, how we dress, where we go, which conferences we attend, what we tweet about, what we post about. So building our brand is something that is happening whether you're aware of it or not. You're always telling somebody something. And so if you're aware of what you're telling, then you can deliver the message. Otherwise, the world will influence the message that's being received. So we're responsible for our own behavior and how we show up, and that's our own advertising. And then we also have to partner with others. We get to partner with others so that we have sponsorship and that others us to fulfill whatever we have our calling to be. And this conference right now is a result of that. A friend of a friend of a friend, and we all got together. This is how we all ended up here. It wasn't that, you know, I knew Susan. That's not how this happened. But we knew somebody who knew somebody, and then you end up getting to in unusual, interesting, fascinating places. So, oops. Okay. So when you have a good brand, then it's consistent. We are all familiar with Chick-fil-A. And what does Chick-fil-A say when you say, thank you? It's our pleasure every time. Doesn't matter if you're in New York, you're in Texas, you're in Oklahoma, you know what you're going to get with a Chick-fil-A experience, which is why it's got that line going around the block and why Chick-fil-A are basically money printers. I mean, they're making a killing off of fried chicken. So who would have thought? It's because the experience, and that experience that is reproduced everywhere you go. And you'll say the same thing with an Apple product. You know it's going to come in a beautiful package. It's going to be consistent. You see that with Starbucks, you know your name's going to be written on it. You know you can't say tall or small or right. Avi's got hers right there. I love it. You have to say latte. You have to say what is the word tall instead of small. Anyway, you know what you're going to get in the medical world as well. If you pull up a Z-Dog video, you know you're going to see rapping, you're going to see craziness, you're going to see stuff that's happening modern. So every location, every day, including the holidays, including when you're tired, if you're meeting the expectation for your brand, then that's going to be reliable and dependable. So you have to think about what you want your particular brand to be. So how do you do that? Well, you might want to think about, who do you want to be? Are you about to start a new job? Well, that's a great opportunity to redefine yourself, a new title, and think about what you want to, how you want to show up and what you want to be known for. And when you think about that, then you actually need to construct that. And you can do that by writing your elevator pitch. And writing your elevator pitch is so important to have early on in your career, as you transition for your career, etc. So how do you do that? You want to have a goal of less than 3 minutes to convey, who am I and why should you care who I'm telling you about that I am, and what's in it for me. That's always the answer, is the with it question. And you want to tell people why they want to know you. And you don't want to just say, well, I'm a rheumatologist and I'm new to the city. You want to say, oh, I have this passion for X, Y, and Z, or I have these kids that are interested in this. And then you want to practice saying it out loud, live it, share it, advertise it in all that you say and all that you do. So sorry, I'm having some laptop issues. So when you think about who do you want to be, you also want to think about, what do you want to fill up your schedule and your time? So if you don't want to be bothered on weekends and on evenings, then you may start by making your email sign off say, no need to respond outside of business hours. I know that your personal life is valuable to you. Well, if you send that out and somebody opens it at 3 a.m., are they more likely to email you at 3 a.m.? No, you've already set the boundary. So people will know, don't bother to email her on the weekends, because you've let them know who you are and what you want to be in the future. You don't want to be on, you want to be committees, you decide, and your response is going to be the thing that's going to decide your brand. Are you the go-to who wants to be part of everything, or are you saying no, no more? So if an opportunity comes up, you can say, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for trusting me with this opportunity. And when the next opportunity comes up, they're going to go to you again because you appreciated it. You wanted it. You let them know that. But if you say, that sounds interesting, give me a week and I'll come back to you, and you're letting them know that you're not going to be pushed around. You're not going to end up in all these other committees. You're going to actually process it to see if it's right for you. And then you may come back and say, this is a great opportunity, and I believe that Dr. Jones would be perfect for this, something like that. And then the next time something comes around, if you're kind of done with these kind of committees, you're not going to be asked to be on it anymore. So something that for me is I hated the traditional meetings. I hated having an hour of my life gone and never see it back. So some things that I did was I arrived early to the meeting, prepared, and I would only schedule 20-minute meetings or 40-minute meetings. And then people knew, don't bother to ask Dawn to do a 60-minute meeting because that's not what she wants. And so as a result, I was able to have more control of my time. And I also limited it so there was always a written agenda with only 2 or 3 points, and we didn't go on and on and on and brainstorm the universe so that we could all move on with our day. The other part of my personal brand was combining things. Efficiency is my love language. And so if I can do a walk and talk and get exercise and go outside and change my perception of reality and get out of the walls of the clinic or the hospital, as well as interact with somebody, we can get more creative. We can have hard conversations, those kind of things, as opposed to just sitting across the table staring at each other. So that became part of my brand. And now people know Dawn's going to ask for a walk and talk. And so if they're tired or their feet hurt, they're not going to ask for a meeting with me because they know I'm just going to drag them, throw a bottle of water in their hand, and we're walking around the hospital. So I'm going to tell you the story of my brand and how I evolved into GutGirl. So I hated sodas, and I found this out by taking care of fatty liver patients, and as well as patients with abdominal pain, reflux, heartburn. It was always soda, 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 soda. And then all these women, why am I not losing weight? Well, it could be that, 64-ounce, Dr. Pepper that you're drinking there, 4 of those a day. Anyway, so I hated sodas, and I wanted the sodas out of the hospital. I also had a lot of integrity. I worked very hard. I did what I was supposed to do. And so what I did is I went to the leaders in my healthcare facility and said, hey, you 5 guys are not the picture of your 25-year-old selves. How about you come with me and let's do a well-being program? And we're going to call it the MBA, Mind Body Activity. And with that, we're going to write down every single thing you eat. We're going to have you go on dates with your wife once every 2 weeks. And we're also going to work out at 5 in the morning because you don't have an OR at 5 in the morning. You don't have a meeting. You don't have a patient. I know you're available at 5 in the morning. And anybody who doesn't show up to get their MBA has to throw $10 in the kitty. And when you're talking to CEOs and CMOs of hospitals, it's amazing what a $10 motivation will do, and their pride. They wanted to know that they were doing part of this workout. So all of us together, there were 10 of it. I called it the 10 Most Wanted. And after we trained together for 6 months, we all ran a half marathon. And I am not a marathon runner. I've never run a half marathon. And one of the guys almost crawled across the table, said, Dawn, I don't know who you think you are. I don't run, and I'm never going to run, and you're not going to make me. I said, okay, that's cool. Just bring your bike, or, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. Fast forward years later, and that CEO of the Children's Hospital, when you interview him and say, what do you do for fun? He said, I run marathons with myself and my wife and my kids. Now he loves it. But he also built that new Children's Hospital as we were doing this with no fryers in there, only ovens and no soda machines. And then the CMO made every grand rounds, which internal medicine grand rounds is the largest grand rounds we have with food. He made that have no fried foods and have 50% plant-based meals. So the impact that we made was tremendous. And kind of what my secret little evil plan was to have them think about well-being for all of our trainees, all of our docs, all of our nurses, all of our faculty, and it trickled down so they lived it. They walked the walk, and then they talked the talk. Well, they saw who I was. I had no skin in the game. It wasn't like for a promotion or any payment or anything. I just really wanted these guys to be good leaders and be there for a long time. So we got rid of their diabetes. We got rid of their high blood pressure. Together, these 10 guys lost 210 pounds. It was magic. So then they had leadership opportunities come up, some committee to do this, some committee to do that. And they kept throwing Dawn's name in the hat because my brand was, I am a servant leader. I am there to help those around me. And I want to not see my other physicians burn out or have unhealthy habits. And I want to do things that are for the good of the institution and the good of our patients. So as a result, I ended up with GI leadership opportunities, institution opportunities, and then I had developed a following. And that's, of course, when you know you're a leader. It's not your title, it's how many people, when you turn around, are actually following you. And I said, oh, golly, I do have a following. And I had a message to share, and that is the message of what's really happening to women physicians, that our life is different than the male physicians. Our experiences are different. Our stress is different. And that's, of course, why all of you already know we've got the #1 rate of suicide and all of these things. And throw COVID on top, childcare, elder care, and it's kind of a mess. So I was asked by my boss to start GutGirlMD on Twitter. He wanted me to be talking about GI illnesses, pancreatitis, liver disease, whatever, but that's not who followed me. It was other women physicians saying, how the heck do you do it? You have 3 kids, you're leading a division, you're publishing. How do you do it? So it became so obvious that the whole world wanted to hear more about this. And of course, Dr. Glaser is going to be talking about Twitter and the magic of that and all the good things in a minute. But that was part of the branding as well. And then, as Dr. Lee mentioned, I was honored to be part of the WELL group. And off of that, I got nominations for American Medical Association Awards, American Women Association Awards, because I wrote some grants and I did a Women Leaders in Medicine program at my institution, and we moved the needle for burnout, retention, and engagement. And that was amazing. So to actually have data and not just talk about burnout, but think and do something about it and then measure it and show the reproducibility was a blast. So meanwhile, I forwarded onto the next stage of my career where I got trained as a certified executive coach so I could help my colleagues that are suffering so bad. And now we're putting on a conference in San Antonio at the end of April that'll be called Authenticity, Courage, and Empowerment. As a result of this brand I've been building for 20 years, it's filling up. People know my name. They know what I'm about. They know what I'm coming to the table with and what I'm offering, and they want to be involved with that. So when you build your brand, you have no idea where it's going to land, but whenever you have a good idea and are partnering with others, you're bringing your following, they're bringing their following, and then magic occurs. And this is how we change the house of medicine. So it's imperative that every young woman on this call start looking at your intent, looking at your brand, looking at how you want to show up, and start doing it deliberately every day. So if you don't see what you need, build it yourself. We needed a Women Leaders in Medicine program. I didn't wait for permission. I didn't wait for somebody to give me a budget. I just got creative and we made it happen. And then I wrote a grant and got $150,000 to study it for the next 3 years. So you never know where this stuff is going to come. It was not my intent. It was just my intent to get some ladies in a room and talk about negotiations because we're just bad negotiators. And boom, it took off into something I could have never dreamed. So allow yourself to dream, but do it with others, like this kind of situation. Collaborate. Don't do it on your own. You can join fabulous organizations like this, your state organizations, ACP, other specialty organizations as well, Empowering Women Physician Mom Group, other support groups. There's so many out there and we really need each other. And of course, COVID has separated us more than ever. So it's so important that we get together, and we're going to talk a lot more about this with Dr. Glaser's talk, but I'm excited about that. So your brand is who you are and letting the world know what you're offering. So at the end of the day, elevate your own brand, be prepared to elevate others and ask them to elevate yours in reciprocation. And then we can show that you're not the only weird one trying to change the world. We're all trying to change the world for better together. So for your homework, if you want homework, not all of us do, but some of us are type A personalities and we love a little bit of homework and a challenge. Write your elevator pitch of who you are today, and then rewrite it and shorten it, and then rewrite it and shorten it again, and then practice it and actually record a video of yourself saying it, and then rewrite your elevator's pitch for what you want it to be 5 years from now. As you see the difference, you're going to see what needs to be filled in to get you from where you are today to where you want to be 5 years from now. And then you're going to know how you want to show up in the room, how you want to show up in the emails, how you want to show up in your life. And you'll be sure that you're consistent in that. Three great resources to think about, giving you some cut and dry guidance on that is Atomic Habits, The One Thing, and The True North. Those are all great little jump boards for getting you focused on getting you from one to another. Because otherwise, this life will just push you around. As a busy physician and 85% of us being moms, life will just push you around. And then elevate, promote, and sponsor others, and we're going to change the world. So if you want to find me, this is a lot of my social media, and there's the conference. If you're interested in signing up, it's authenticphysicians.com. I'd love to see any of you. I'm a Texan. I'm a hugger. I'd love to see you and give you a hug down here in San Antonio. I'm in Temple, but the conference is going to be in beautiful San Antonio at La Cantera Resort, and you're going to hear a lot of other women like-minded in this way. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share my story and my experience with you guys.
Wow, thank you, Dawn. That was amazing. Yeah, so check out Dawn's site. I'll send out links to her essays, which are so inspiring. And I have to tell you, I did this elevator pitch. There's someone in ACP, Dr. Moser. She made everybody do an elevator pitch for what they wanted to achieve in ACP. And I wanted to start a Women in Medicine series. And then I partnered up with Ankita because the early careers also wanted to do that. So this was just an example of what you can achieve if you work together. So that was really inspiring. Thank you. So now we have, we're gonna pivot a little bit, but not too much. And welcome Dr. Glasser from Oregon.
Well, thank you so much. And it was just absolutely wonderful to hear Dr. Sears speak. And I hope I will, I'm going to try to piggyback and tie in as much as I can, because these two areas really do overlap very, very nicely. And I know we'll have time for questions. So thank you for the boost regarding social media and use of Twitter. I'm going to come at this from an angle that you may not expect, but certainly I get the question a lot, like, do I put my Twitter handle or my social media handles on my CV? And my goal for our time together is that that's not the only question you should be phrasing. And I'm not saying that's not the question you should be phrasing, but I want to help you really phrase the even more powerful and potent question. So I threw a couple of things out about me. Thank you again for the gracious introduction. And I put this out there because this is my identity as someone who is cognizant of gender inequity in the workplace, gender inequity in the promotion and hiring process. I'm a white cisgendered woman, but I know that other colleagues amongst us have even more challenges that they face in conveying their skills, their impact, their accomplishments in the professional space through static documents. And as I alluded to, like, I want to talk about the CV, but really use the CV as a launch pad to a broader discussion. And not just talk about how social media and digital use can be on a CV, but then how your CV, how digital resources can help you amplify your accomplishments. And I work with a group of friends, and we've actually started to call the CV, and again, these seemingly static professional documents, a potential ally, not a guarantee, but a potential ally in the work that we're doing for equity, diversity, and inclusion. So, gotta start with a little bit of background. You got to reference the Latin. Like, why is this called a CV? And honestly, I don't know the difference between a CV and a resume. I still haven't figured it out. I think one's supposed to be longer or shorter. But, you know, again, we all like moan and groan. If somebody says, like, can you send me an updated copy of your CV? I think the first reaction is, oh God, how long ago did I update it? Or shoot, like, what did I forget to put on it? Or is it clean? Like, is it really like the thing that they want from me right here and now? And how many weeks do I have? So legend tells us, the history books tell us that Leonardo da Vinci was the first person to craft a CV. And it doesn't really look like what we think of the CV now, but I actually think there are a lot of fun lessons to draw from it. He ended up writing this multi-page, like, bullet-pointed letter to the Duke of Milan. I think it's like 13 bullet points, trying to get some position in the Duke's household. Now, somebody told me that he was actually in prison and trying to talk his way out of prison. So, but I don't know, that just factors into the story. But what he does is he has an audience. He lists his past accomplishments, but he also speaks to his future skills and strengths and future potential for this position. So not just what I've done, but I've done this and I can do this in the future. I want to anchor on that too, because I think that's how we can, one of the ways that we can really harness this CV to help our accomplishments and our skills come alive in that course of life. So I think depending on your institution, we have a very templated CV format that is both helps and sometimes frustrates. But there's, I think we all recognize that certain things go on your CV. But the question I get a lot from other physicians and other people in healthcare, and certainly from trainees, is, should I put this on here? Should I put this non-medical experience on here? I am team blue collar job goes on your ERAS application, because I'm going to learn a lot about your communication skills. If you worked at a restaurant or worked in retail, but I know that a lot of people have faced pushback from having non-medical things on their CV. And then of course the question is, do I put my social media presence on my CV? Do I put my Twitter handle, my Instagram account? And if so, how? And then, and what's the next step? And then why does it matter? This has come up during this talk already. I hope that this is not new information for you, as hard as it is to see and hear, but we were disadvantaged before the pandemic. And now 20 months into it, we are still facing an uphill battle. And this is just women. Again, this does not speak to other disparaged groups, communities within the medical field. And I keep saying the CV is a static document, but it's not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. So again, Leonardo had his audience, but who might be the audience for your CV or for someone else's CV? Jobs, leadership positions, so change in job in your institution. Again, this factors into your brand. How are you communicating your brand to a stakeholder or a reader or an assessor? And again, why does it, one of the reasons this matters. So even when we get our accomplishments on our CV, women's CVs are consistently ranked lower than identical men's CVs. And like, this is like, they literally have the exact same content and the name has changed. And this has been reproduced. This is a recent study, but this has been demonstrated outside the medical professions. It's also been demonstrated with regards to ethnic sounding names. If your name is Donald Smith, I hope I'm not offending anyone who's related to Donald Smith, but if you have a like white male sounding name, your CV is going to be ranked more highly, and you're more likely to get an interview for a position, let alone the position itself. And here's the thing: even for leadership potential, women were consistently ranked lower. So let's pivot. What do we mean by social media? Dr. Sears kept referencing my Twitter presence, but that's not the only kind of social media. I think that many of you may have seen the donut analogy. This is actually from my donut shop in Portland, Oregon. I've always got to share. This is from Blue Star Donuts. They're better than Voodoo, but you didn't hear that from me. So how can we reclaim the static document as a means, not an end in itself? So my institution's template has scholarship, teaching, and service on there, but these questions come up again. How do you put that on there? Can you put it on there? What about advocacy, especially during the pandemic? There are so many ways to contribute to the professional community and the public. And also, what is scholarship? Even if your CV, your institution has an outline that includes scholarship, what goes under that category? And is it more than traditional peer-reviewed scholarship? And again, before the pandemic and certainly during it, again, at almost at the 20-month mark, there are so many ways to teach and educate and produce scholarly work, high quality, research, evidence-driven, impactful work, blog posts, podcasts, appearances on local media, op-eds in print media and non-digital media, Tweetorial, so you're using Twitter as a way to teach and convey something in more than only one tweet, but in 10 or 20 tweets. And I love this line from Dr. Daniel Cabrera. This was part of the press release when the Mayo Clinic announced about 5 or 6 years ago that they were going to start including markers of, including metrics of social media-based accomplishments in their promotion and tenure criteria. And I love this. It says, if we're here to teach, you have to accept that some of the ways we teach are not traditional. And this absolutely factors into social media. So this is my group of pals, and we have dubbed ourselves the advanced group. As I joke, I don't think my mother ever predicted that I'd be a rebel with a cause, but it's really fun to just be shaking up the paradigm in a way that potentially benefits a lot of us in the profession. And I like the Bloom's taxonomy. I like using a pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid is the foundation. So read this from the foundation, not the bottom, the foundation up. Our goal, and my goal, I said that the question of can I put social media on a CV is there's a bigger question behind it. Really, the question is, how can we put non-traditional but highly impactful accomplishments on a professional document and then articulate them to readers and other stakeholders? So I want to empower anyone to understand that non-traditional, so scholarship accomplishments occurring in non-traditional venues are impactful, but the onus on us and the readers of this is also to be able to examine and articulate metrics of impact and reach. We know that number of citations, H-index, are surrogate measures, surrogate markers of impact and reach of traditional scholarship. Are they foolproof? No. But then how do we articulate the, how can I say this podcast has had 70,000 downloads? That's more than any conference presentation I've given at the national level. How can you say that this tweet, I had a viral tweet. Well, what was the viral tweet? Maybe it was pro-vaccine or something like that. How can you articulate how many people saw it and reacted to it? And hopefully in a way that you wanted them to react. And fortunately, in 2021, there are more and more people all the time working on a vernacular, a vocabulary to put on your CV, to send to your promotion and tenure committee. Like we have a Women in Academic Medicine committee. They've really been working on this. And how can we not just change, but how can we pivot and expand and broaden? I even see that language. It's not shifting the conversation, it's broadening the conversation. And then this is an article that I was a co-author on, getting back to advocacy through social media, finding ways, again, not to just say like, oh, we need to change this, but like, this is legitimate, it's impactful. If you think about Glassick and Boyer and what makes something scholarship, if we apply standards of quality, that this is intentional, it's productive, we're in a better position to be able to, again, articulate the impacts of reach. Now, this is just one example of screen grabs of parts of my CV. So I've used my institution's structure, so scholarship, teaching, service. As the advice of Ed Mariano, who's an anesthesiologist at Stanford, who's really been a guru in the space as well. He's like, we're living in the digital age. Again, this is before the pandemic. Make these living, breathing electronic documents. So a couple months into the pandemic, when I got tired of the really slow, like login to the remote server from work when I was telecommuting most days of the week, I just really started putting everything on Google Drive. And now it is so easy and fast. So like tonight, after I go home, after my kids are in bed, it'll take me 30 seconds to log on to Google Drive and put this on my CV, this talk today. As opposed to like leaving a note and putting a sticky note, leaving it on my desk at work, and then the next time I'm on campus, I'm like, oh shoot, I got to do that. I got to update it. And then what I've done again, because I'm not printing my CV and mailing it to anybody anymore. It's all being shared as Word documents or Google Drive links or PDFs. I have embedded hyperlinks to articles, to the DOI information, to the metrics. So I'm leading the reader to alt metrics. Anything non-peer reviewed is on there. Anything digital, so podcasts, blog posts, it's on there, and I've made it easily accessible. And then fortunately for me, a lot of the social media work that I do is through formal positions. So I am actually part of my APD role for our residency program is supervising our social media accounts. I've on a couple different communications committees for national societies. So fortunately, I've been able to put this on my CV under service and leadership and committees for years. And, figure out the vocabulary to articulate. So if you have an article that really has had a worldwide readership and has garnered a lot of social media attention, I want you to be able to analyze that and then communicate this. So this is an example of altmetrics. And then why not? I keep saying, like, before the pandemic and certainly after 20 months of the pandemic. I mean, this is an article published midway through the pandemic. This is a disruptive opportunity to challenge the paradigms, to challenge what really drives the lay education forward, what drives our own continuing education and professional development forward. And then I'm going to hopefully wrap up soon. Yeah, I said that the CV is a means to an end. It's not an end itself. And when people say, like, oh, can I put my social media handles on my CV? Really, the question is, though, well, what have they done for you? And are there multiple ways to communicate that? And also, have they done things for you that led you to an opportunity or an accomplishment that is a traditional entry on a CV? And I think that's where we really need to broaden the perspective here. So this is a heat map, Simplor, which is an analytics program. I don't even know what we were talking about. The person who generated the heat map can't even remember. We may have been talking about tutorials. Nobody remembers. But these are people from all over the country, from all different specialties. And I actually had some fun nerding out with this. What I've done is, and I've met a lot of these people. I've talked to them. But I've just highlighted the people that I have published with. And I know that, and I've been invited to talk because they've seen my brand. They've seen what I'm passionate about. They've seen my content expertise, both clinical and non-clinical. And it has opened doors and opportunities, and especially in academic medicine. We are so encouraged to hyper specialize that it can be very lonely at your own institution. So I'm the medical director of our pre-op clinic, and yes, there are other people in pre-op clinic, but like, if I'm going to work on a review article or a position paper, like, I've got to find people outside my institution to do it. And then this is another article that I worked on that potentially, I mean, there's a downside to social media, there's a plus side. I think it depends on the intentionality and how you use it. But potentially social media can expand your mentors, especially when it comes to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it's not in this article, but Sasha Shillcutt and Julie Silver have an amazing piece that was in the New England Journal a couple of years ago that basically say, like, social media may help a woman, like, let's take a Latina medical student who wants to become a surgeon, and that she may not have any mentors who look like her at her institution, but social media might bridge that gap and develop a mentorship base. And I think, again, that goes for other underrepresented minorities and disadvantaged members of our medical profession. So as I said, share it, talk about it, develop that vocabulary. And both my goal is to empower those who might be reading this and those who might be writing this, or both producing and consuming this information. And a lot is in your hands too. A lot of job applications, promotion packets, they require a cover letter or a letter of interest or some sort of personal statement. You are empowered. Again, this is sort of the next iteration of your elevator pitch. Talk about yourself, weave that narrative. And maybe it's not just, I did this on Twitter, but like really weave that narrative of, like, over 2 or 3 years, this is what came of a tutorial that I put out there or something like that. And then I said, my goal is to help the CV and other professional documents be an ally, an unlikely ally in our ongoing diversity, equity, and inclusion work. So one, both be your own advocate. If you know the metric, figure out a way to communicate the metric. But also be an ally. So if you're looking at a CV and you see this trajectory, you see the number of lay media appearances, talk about it, be that sponsor, be that amplifier. Or if you're looking at, ask to critique someone's scholarship contributions, the number of peer-reviewed publications, You read between the lines, educate your reader, educate the promotion and tenure committee, or educate the person who might be reading that letter of recommendation. Another thing is, again, I talked about cloud-based documents. I've also used iNote, so if I'm on my phone, I can just, okay, add this next time. People also see like, okay, like somebody like sent me a compliment on Twitter or a direct message. I don't know what to do with it. Do I put that on my educator's portfolio? Do I put that with my teaching evaluations? I think a lot of institutions are still figuring that out too. But at the very least, I would say screen grab it or something. Put it in a rainy day folder. Life is really stressful. Like, find something. Go back and toot your own horn. I mean, I actually have a folder on my iPhone. Like, I screen grab everything. I screen grab ideas for presents, ideas for books. If somebody like tweets out one of my papers, I might screen grab it and I have it all collated, and then sometimes I clean it out and send some to my bosses. I also look for other people. Like, one of my colleagues published a book and was getting all this wonderful feedback on Twitter. I kept sending our boss, I'm like, his book is doing really well. I'm like, put this in his employee packet. Again, be that amplifier. And even if like you had a crappy day and you just want to read the compliments you've gotten before, do it. And then, yeah, so that's going to round this out. I think I hit 20 minutes exactly, and that'll hopefully leave plenty of time for discussion. But again, like, my goal here is that it's not just a question of, can I put my Twitter handle on my CV, but really thinking broadly about the ripple effects of your social media presence. Are you using it to teach, and can you capture that teaching? Are you using it to create scholarly content, and can you articulate that? Or what other doors has it opened for you? So even if it doesn't really fit on your CV in and of itself, it may end up getting something on your CV that shows your passions, your interests, and your skills. All right. And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see people.
Wow, that was really amazing. I know that I don't do much social media, but I do the Twitter thing. And for those of you who are not on Twitter, there is such a rich community of physicians of all different specialties on it. And you can find your community. I know that there are a lot of he for she people on social media. But yeah, that was, but one tip I did pick up is that I have different versions of my CV all over the place. So I'm going to do that Google Drive, so I don't have to look for which version I need to send where.
Excellent.
That was a great tip. I'm going to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute, or you can put it in the chat. We are a very friendly group, so don't be shy. Well, I have a question. I have a question for Dawn. So when did you start this Gut Girl company, and what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So GutGirlMD was my Twitter handle first. I just wanted to do something fun for my Twitter handle once my boss made me do Twitter after I dragged my feet for 2 years. So I don't have time for that dumpster fire and all the politics, and no. And so, so the name was already there. And then I did the Women Leaders in Medicine conference at my own institution. And then I knew I wanted to expand it outside my institution and make it bigger. So that's when I went ahead and filed my own business and started a side business. And then that's when I got my own education as a coach. So this has all been only 1 year in the making. It's been an exciting year, and a lot of physicians are doing an entrepreneur side gig recently because we've realized medicine isn't what we thought it was, which was a guarantee of a lifelong career and paycheck. We realized how volatile this thing could be, and at the same time, to serve my colleagues, I just had to do it. So it was in me, and it was just one of those things. Am I brave enough? Am I bold enough to do it? I did it. And so it's so much fun. And if any of you are considering stepping into the entrepreneurial space, you'll find there's so many women physicians and male physicians that are exploring and learning so much, because we didn't learn business. We didn't learn all the diverse things. We learned you have one job, be a doctor, and that's it. And there's so much else out there. And so many of us are burnt out because we feel a lack of control. And when you are an entrepreneur, by definition, you have control over what you're doing with your time, your money, your finances, your decision-making. So it energizes that part of me. Now, yes, I have my day job and I'm a gastroenterologist 4 days a week, but the Fridays, I'm a coach and I'm creating things and building things, and it's exciting. So it's fun to do both. Why not have our cake and eat it too?
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think that's a really good tip. One of the things that keeps us engaged and not burnt out is to do something that you're passionate about. And I think that's really important, especially for busy clinicians who have so many responsibilities. Actually, Ankita had a question for both of you. You each mentioned the power of allyship. How do you recognize and follow up with allies, especially as an early career woman in medicine?
You want to take it?
Do you mean like, well, that's a great question. Do you mean like acknowledging that you know that they're being an ally, or they're sponsoring you, or sort of
I think that's
yes.
Right, Ankita?
Yes. Yeah. So I think the question is, sometimes we may not recognize who might be a good ally or a sponsor. So how do you go about identifying them and then following up with them at the appropriate interval?
Yeah. Oh gosh. You don't use the term organic, and I think sometimes this happens organically. I also say I was raised in a like you write thank you notes kind of household, like handwritten, like at least 3 sentences. Like we had a whole like formula for writing really thoughtful thank you notes. So I think one, like I would say, like you're sort of starting it from the back end is like make these conversations like when we're all separated remote, digitally remotely with lockdown and telecommuting, like reach out. And I think, again, that's one of the ways to feel less lonely during this ongoing pandemic. So if you know that somebody has been your ally or has sponsored you, reach out. And sometimes it can be a little off-putting, especially like when sponsored, you're very early in your career and you realize or you find out that sponsorship really happened from somebody at the top of a professional society. Like I would say, embrace, step into the attention to channel a friend, Mark Shapiro. Send the notes, send an email, send a Twitter direct message if you don't have email. And just say like, a little bird told me that you spoke, that you helped make this possible, and I really want to thank you. And sometimes that actually develops the relationship from a sponsorship to a mentorship. It's really even like a peer-to-peer friendship. So I think not being embarrassed or shy, sort of, even though a lot of us are introverts, but just extending that line of communication. And I think also, as if I was an ally or if I was sponsoring someone, I want to know what the outcome was. Was I successful? If I was that own feedback loop. If I wrote a letter for somebody, did they get that award? Did they get that promotion? Did they get that position?
Yeah, there's really not, I don't have a whole lot to add other than gratitude goes a long way. And I think that's beautiful. And you never know where this is going to evolve, and it can go flip-flop both ways, and you can be stunned of how things will evolve over 5 or 10 years. And you're like, oh, wait, actually, they can help me and I can help them to do this other thing. So you just never know where it's going to go. So keeping the communication going.
Holly, you had a question. She said that sadly, that women leaders at her workplace are not always the most supportive of other women. Do you have any tips for finding allies in that situation? I know for me personally, many of my mentors are not at my institution. They are people that I've met along the way, or I've met through ACP, or I've met through, mutual people, or just at meetings. So mentorship can come from many different places. Most of my mentors are actually not at my institution where I work. So I think it's important to have mentorship outside of your identity at work. And I know that's been successful for me. So, and then there was another question. Has there been a talk in this series on getting started with social media and building your following? We have not had a talk about that, but that in and of itself can be a whole webinar. But once you get started, it's a lot of fun. You have to be careful about what you put out on social media. I know I'm very careful about that. But that would be actually a really good topic and something that I think maybe at New York ACP we should have. I know one other thing, since we were speaking about tutorials, our medical students did do educational tutorials like once a month, and they are outstanding. We actually vet them, and we do tell them that they should put it on their CV because it's a lot of content, and it gets retweeted a lot, and it's very popular.
And honestly, like that vetting step, like, oh God, I can't remember. I think it's Glassick's definition of scholarship. Like, like if you have a mechanism for critical evaluation, like that's one of the things you need to have to make it scholarship versus scholarly. So like, check that out. Yeah,
great tip. Oh yes, we are recording this session, so you can look at it on replay because it was such an important topic. And I think what we're going to do also is we'll email Dawn's information and Avi's information if anyone has any questions. And then in the link in the chat, Karen put in our recorded webinar page if you want to bookmark that. We also have other Women in Medicine series. Actually, from the Well Fellowship, we actually had BC was one of our speakers, and also, who was it, Ankita? It was Tiffany, who's in Europe right now.
Awesome.
But even though we haven't all met in person, I do feel like we are, yes, connected in many ways. And hopefully soon, with this pandemic being over, we'll be able to meet at National ACP and other forums. Does anyone have any other questions they want to pose or any comments?
I just have one final one.
Yes.
I think that Mary was talking about women not helping other women, and that has been a ginormous historical problem because of what a generation at my level and older had to go through. We can change that, and every time we elevate each other, we can change how we support each other, and by actually doing it and modeling it. I want to empower you. When you're frustrated every time that happens to you, and it will happen to you, double down and you drag 4 other youngins with you and you show them and model for them. No, I'm older, I'm 2 steps ahead, and this is how I'm going to lead you and elevate you. So I don't want you to be frustrated and beat down. I want you to just let that be the gas in your tank to do it even more for the next generation.
That is so true.
Myself. It's called the queen bee phenomenon, I believe. That sort of like perceived or real antagonism or toxic culture between women, and often it's the like sort of the like catty schoolgirl stereotype, and like people don't like say, oh, I don't want more women on this committee because they're just going to fight with each other. But like leading by example, as hard as that might be, having the mentor. I mean, I've been the recipient of toxic leadership from women in the past. I didn't recognize it at when it was unfolding at the time. I knew something wasn't right. I couldn't understand why. But I think having the mentors to safely confide. I think this is one of the reasons to seek leadership training as a woman, even when you don't see yourself in a leadership position anytime soon, because you can sort of analyze it in real time versus just be subjugated to it. And then finding your colleagues, collaborators that will continue to change the narrative or
I think one thing I always tell, like when people thank me for, amplifying or helping them, is I always tell them, just remember to pay it forward, right? And I think that's, if you pay it forward, this type of feeling can keep growing. I think Rosie had a question. She had her hand up.
Hi. Yes, I just had a really quick question. Thank you so much. This talk was wonderful. And I already feel inspired by it. Dr. Sears, quick question. You mentioned earlier in the talk that you set some pretty clear boundaries. I think one of them was, I'm not sitting for more than 20 minutes during a meeting. To me, that's really gutsy. And I just wanted to hear more about like how was that setting boundaries and also being able to still have your peers consider you a servant leader, because I feel like that is a very difficult balance to achieve. And then lastly, like how were you able to set those limits and then not get pushback from your colleagues?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for that insight. Another big point people are surprised to hear is even though I was the chief and I was president of the clinic staff organization, I never worked 100%. Never. I always worked 60%, 70%, 80%. I would change it every 6 months, trying to find that perfect balance, which doesn't exist. I don't look for it, but just being content in that. So I learned early on that nobody had my back, and it wasn't my job to make me happy, but I needed to make myself happy. So I needed to figure out what my non-negotiables were. And then when people would push at me, so we all have an Uncle Joe in our group, and mine was literally named Joe. And Joe would be like, how come you don't work on Fridays? I was like, you know what? You don't have to work on Fridays either. You can reduce your reimbursement by 20%, your vacation time by 20%, your CME money by 20%. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm like, exactly, but you're welcome to. And then they shut up real fast. And so you just offer that I'm not looking for special treatment. I'm just going to own my own life. And so whether it's the time of emails, the time of meetings, how much FTE, which patients you're going to see, you dare them to push back. You say, okay, really? Are you going to fire me over this? I don't think so. And then you figure out what's going to work for both ends. You're not taking advantage of it, but you are, as somebody's putting on there, yeah, Dr. Lee's putting, own your own life. And I give you permission, all of you, I give you permission to own your life. Unfortunately, the minute you stepped into medical school, you learned that the patients are now more valuable. Your bladder has no value. Your hunger pains have no value. Your sleep has no value. I'm here to change that and go, you are so valuable and you have to protect yourself. So please, for the love of God, do it. Don't take advantage of others. Love your neighbors, love your colleagues, but do speak up for your basic human needs, and it's okay. And if they push back, fine, just offer that they can do the same thing.
Yeah, and I would say we're not going to change this culture if we don't fight. And it doesn't even have, it can be an outright antagonistic fight. It can be steadily chipping away at culture change. I mean, like every mentor I see who has, when a CEO of a major professional society has like no need to respond after 5 p.m. or on weekends, that chips away at the culture and the conversation. And I mean, I have this conversation with my leadership team in clinic too, like, what are the optics of me responding to email at 8 o'clock at night or on weekends? And am I doing it for me because like I'm watching a cheesy movie and I just want to kind of chip away at some email, or like I feel the external pressure. So I think, setting that role model, and I've had discussions with people who say like, when I see that you respond late at night, like I just know that you don't expect that in other people too. That's what works for you right then and there. The other thing I'll say is my boss uses the line data over drama, which I love. So maybe, as Tom says, if somebody comes at you with a criticism, to be able to say like, this is the reality, these are the facts of the situation. To be able to counter emotions with information can go a very, very long way.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Thank you. That was a really great question. Well, we are at 7:01 and we went 1 hour, 1 minute over. Sorry, Dawn. But thank you so much to Dr. Sears and Dr. O'Glasser for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this was really great and empowering and inspirational in so many ways.